Are poor people dumb? Let's talk about it. Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about poverty and the misconceptions that surround people who are low income earners or, people who live in poverty. One of the common misconceptions is that people who live in poverty are dumb. Now, that's not necessarily true. They just lack financial literacy, which is only one form of education. You can't assess someone's total intellect just because they lack one form of education. I came across this study that was done by the American Public Education Foundation, which showed that 66% of states received a grade C or worse on their evaluation of their financial education. Only 17% of states received a grade A or B. Now, to me, this sounds like a systematic failure, not so much a failure on the individuals. Basically, we aren't educating our people about financial literacy, which is really not anything new. If you look at education throughout history, you see that education mostly has been withheld from a lower income people, from people who were laborers. It's been safeguarded by upper echelon people, by scholars, by well-to-do people. And also, if you look through history, you'll see that, when you look at people who are oppressed, one of the common elements is withholding education from them.
The school system is actually teaching people to be poor. The school system will never teach you about money. The school system was designed to teach you to be an employee or a doctor or a lawyer, a specialist, but never about money.
So I think that, financial education is intentionally withheld from people. The reason it's withheld because education in some regards can put you on a level playing field with people. It can be sort of an equalizer. So when you talk about a financial education, now you can start learning how to make money for yourself, how to manage yourself. So now you might acquire money, which can also be an equalizer and put you on a level playing field with people. And, certain people have a vested interest in, keeping people out of that arena, keeping people illiterate financially so that they can't, be economically prosperous.
I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. Those are the words of John D. Rockefeller, widely regarded as the richest American of all time. Clearly, Rockefeller would far rather have a bunch of mindless workers to employ and manipulate than having intelligent entrepreneurs to compete against him.
That is why we have a class that's called the working poor. These are people who are literally working, but they're still poor. They live at or below the poverty line. If you look at the different social classes, right, the upper, middle, lower, the lower is the most populated. And also, I think that, honestly, if you want to be honest, right, poverty is the foundation of capitalism, or at least as we know it. It's literally the foundation of capitalism.
So it's not just that capitalism doesn't fix poverty. It plunges more and more people into desperation so that the system can survive. The rising number of people in poverty can attest to that.
So when we're talking about poverty, we can't just focus solely on the individual. We have to address the systematic and societal issues that are present as well. Even though not all of us are rich, a fair amount of us do benefit positively from capitalism. But there are people who actually, obviously benefit more than others. And I think that they, quite frankly, because of that, are disinterested in coming up with any effective solutions for poverty. Because the capitalistic society that we have now, what would it look like if we didn't have so many poor people? What would it look like if people had more financial literacy? What would it look like if people didn't have to work these low-income jobs, which are fueling these major corporations? I think a lot of people would probably lose money, right? They would lose labor, and that's a major concern for them. But these are all just conspiracies, right? Just conspiracies, just talking. The study I showed earlier is obviously not the only study out there that shows the same results. So we do have limited financial education in our public schools, and the education that we do have that's present is not proficient. It's not adequately teaching people, how to be financially literate. When we look at people's upbringing as well, we see that for most people, their parents aren't teaching them, or at least explicitly teaching them, about financial literacy and about personal finance, which is a major life skill. A lot of us just learn by watching subconsciously and implicitly. You know, we watch our parents, the way they earn their money, the way they spend their money, the attitudes and ideas they have about money.
What did you see growing up with money? You know, who handled it in your household? What type of conversation was had about it? And for most of you, they're probably like, there is no conversation.
And that's pretty much how we learn, which is not really sufficient, especially if your parents aren't really that financially savvy. Or, of course, if they grew up in poverty and now you're growing up in poverty as well, they don't know what education to pass on to you. They don't really have any. That's why I say we really do need educators, and we need more financial literacy programs incorporated into our public school curriculums. And I know some people will say, well, you know, you have the internet, like things like Google and YouTube, you can just search the information for yourself. The truth is, not everyone can be that good at teaching themselves certain topics.
People don't know about APRs when it comes to interest on loans. So many things that people don't know, and it's not like they can ask because you don't know what you don't know.
Also, you know, if this is the first time they're being exposed to it, it might be relatively tough for them to digest that material. You know, if I go to the mechanic and then they tell me everything that's wrong with my car and they show me all the tools that I need to fix it and they say, okay, go fix it, I'm gonna look at them like they're crazy because I don't know what I'm doing. Even though the tools are there, the tool is only as good as the operator. I can't do anything with these tools. And when I say focus on the systemic and societal problems, that's not in an effort to absolve individuals from their personal responsibility, but it's all connected, it's all interconnected. So you have to look at each level. You know, if you look at any basic ecologic model, you will see that there's individuals, there's families, there's communities, there's government. There's so many things that affect an individual. It's not even really about rich versus poor or eat the rich or some sort of class war. It's really about, you know, being equitable and giving people fair access and, you know, adequately teaching people a skill they need to survive, which is financial education. Unless you plan on living in the woods somewhere for free, then you're going to need money in our society, and you're going to need to know how to manage it if you want to be economically prosperous and have a good quality of life. Also, even those of us who, you know, we may not have grew up in poverty, we may not be in poverty, we still have to educate ourselves about poverty so we can drop some of our misconceptions and stereotypes and be more open and willingness and understanding of people who are in poverty. Because as long as you think it's just a failure of an individual, we're really not going to get anywhere. So I say all that to say poor people aren't dumb. They just need education and opportunities, and they can make better choices for their life. That's it.
There are many free resources available. Nonprofit organizations like the Council for Economic Education, Next Gen Personal Finance, and the National Endowment for Financial Education have free materials and activities on their website.
That's that on that. It's a wrap for this video, and I will see you in the next one.